this video clip you will learn how to write a method for an experiment that we've already started to plan. So you will get a planning document that looks sort of roughly like this. In a previous video we looked at how to fill in this part here about the planning, and now we're going to use that information to fill in this part here about the method. So this is the method that will need to be detailed step by step, and it needs to be written so that someone else in your class could follow it without having to ask you any questions. So we're going to provide step-by-step instructions of what you're going to do to carry out the investigation. You have to include the following information from your planning page into the correct steps. So you need to say what you're changing and how, so that was the independent variable, what you're measuring and how, that's the dependent variable, and what you're keeping the same and how, and those are the control variables. So if we look back up here, we'll find out what our purpose was, first of all. So the purpose was going to be to investigate how the distance or height between a beaker of water and methanol fuel affects the time taken for the water to boil. So we said that we're going to be changing the distance or the height between the beaker and the methanol fuel, and then we said these different values that we were going to use to hold the water above the methanol fuel burner. Now these don't have to necessarily be the same ones in your planning sheet as what you put into your method. You can change them as you go. You just need to make a note of what you change them to so that you can add it in later. We've also said what we're going to measure and how, and then what you're keeping the same and how. So we use all this information to write our method. The first step for any method is to collect the equipment. So we will write collect the required equipment and set it up as shown in the diagram. Now I don't have a diagram of the equipment set up currently, but you in person would be either drawing a diagram of what your equipment looks like when it's set up, or you could take a photo and insert it and then make sure that you label it. So we'll talk about how to do that later, but for now we're just going to say what you need. Usually you'll be provided with an equipment list. So the equipment you're going to get are 100ml beaker, matches, methanol fuel burner, water, and we wanted 50 mils because we wrote that earlier. 50 mils of water, stopwatch, clamp, stand and cross head, and a ruler so that we can measure the height. Okay, second step. We've set up the equipment. So first things first. Pour 50 mils of water into the 100ml beaker. So we've said here our variables, so we've included that we've got 50 mils of water, and if we look back up here on our planning document, that is one of our control variables, so we've said that there, and we've also said the size of the beaker, so we've said 100 mils. So if we look back up here, that was another control variable. So at the moment we've already covered part of this part here, what's been kept the same and how. Use the ruler to measure from the top of the methanol burner to a height 5 centimeters above it. Avoid parallax error while measuring. So can't spell measuring, by measuring from by looking at the ruler's values from eye level. Now this part here about parallax error, we talked about that in this section here when we said how we're going to keep our results accurate. Now if you wanted in here you could say avoid parallax error by reading the liquid's volume accurately from eye level at the base of the meniscus. So again, that's using information from in here on the planning sheet. So we've used the ruler to set up a height from 5 centimetres above it. Place the methanol burner on the lamp stand's base. Adjust the boss head so that it is at the measured value 5 centimetres above the burner's tip as measured in step 3. The burner's tip as measured in step 3. Place the beaker of water in the boss head. Light a match and touch it to the burner's tip. This should light. As it does, start the stopwatch. Dispose of the match in the rubbish bin once it is cool enough. Watch the water carefully in the beaker and stop timing as soon as the water reaches a rolling bubble. Now this part here about the water reaching a rolling bubble, that is another control variable from in this section here. So we've said when we're going to stop it, and we've also said what we're measuring. So we're watching that water carefully and timing from when we light the match to when the water is boiling. Record the time on your data table. Either allow the to cool or replace the beaker and water with new ones as in steps 1 through to 5. So by allowing the equipment to cool down and replacing the water in the beaker, it means that we're not making our experiment unfair by having some equipment that's already a lot warmer to begin with than what the first test was. Repeat for 5 centimetres height 2 more times, then adjust the clamp stand to 10 centimetres. Repeat 3 times for each height. Okay, and that explains how we're going to carry out the experiment. We've talked about how we are avoiding errors and how we are making it accurate by repeating trials for all of the different parts.